I think it will be grassroots. I think that change will happen from the bottom up. And I think throughout history, many examples can be given of grassroots change is really being how it is. Because I don't think we can depend on the greater, larger, monolithic industries to really have our best interests. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's pockets of good. There's people that are in powerful positions that do see what we're seeing, but they're the outliers. And they're still single people within a monolithic, massive machines that go on. But I certainly know powerful people in powerful positions that see what we're seeing, but they're still one person, they're a group of people that are maybe aware and are okay with this, but it's like, it's quite bigger than them. So I think you're going to see pockets of things from the top down, pockets of good things from the top down, and you can mention examples of that. But for the most part, I think really the industry will shift. You hear the phrase of, vote with your dollar. I think that that's a powerful thing. I think that industry, especially for-profit industries, are really aware of what consumers want. And I've seen in functional medicine and doing what I've been doing for the past 12 years, like what I said 12 plus years ago was definitely more radical than it is today. And to me, at that point, I have hope to where we're going, as far as people wanting better. And you look at I think of Expo West in Anaheim, that's every year, or almost every year except the pandemic, but like it's the largest natural grocer expo in the world. And you have these massive corporations that are there, and they bought up some brands, or they're there in and of itself learning about the industry. They're there maybe because they care, but I would assume it's mainly because that's where the money is going. And I think that's powerful. And I think that the growth of the quote unquote wellness world, or natural, organic, or alternative ideas within wellness, it's largely been because the people, the consumers, have decided that they want something better. So, and I think over the past 12 years, what's happened? It's the democratization of information, like podcasts like this. Whereas 12, 15, 18 years ago, people were not listening to podcasts like we are today. And they got their news from the 4 channels on TV that were sponsored by the same 10 corporations. And now it's very much democratized and decentralized, which is threatening to some people. But the real smart corporations will get behind the decentralization and realize that it doesn't have to be either or. It can be both and people can be empowered and still get better for you options. And that shouldn't be threatening to anybody. And that to me is, I guess I have an optimistic view of the future if people could start moving in that way.
I join you in that optimistic view. I remember hearing recently a quote that the answer to globalism is localism. And this sort of revolution that you're inviting in us to start, grassroots, to start with our families, to start with ourselves, of course, and then our families, our relationships. What are some of then the first steps that one can take in sort of this active grassroots? I think of like farmers markets, if we can access those. A lot of areas don't have farmers markets. So how can we begin to do this?
I mean, farmers markets are definitely up there. And so if you are in an area, and I live in a small town in Western Pennsylvania, I support farmers markets whenever you can. If you live in even many urban areas, you'll have the farmers from the surrounding country will go into the city to have farmers markets. Since I know some of the major cities within the United States have amazing farmers markets. So, but there are food deserts, and there's massive problems. Like in Western Pennsylvania, specifically in certain areas, you'd think, okay, it's farm country, but they're food deserts. They're rural food deserts where they have tons of fast food, but not a lot of good food. So sometimes you're going to have to drive and some people don't have cars. I realize that, gas is too expensive to get to where the farmers markets are. So we have a long way to go for certain marginalized people, certainly. We have to do better here. But I have to say this, that the vast majority, there's exceptions to the rule, like I mentioned, but the vast majority of Americans, it's not a price problem, it's a priority problem. Because they'd rather spend their money on the latest clothes, fashion, tech stuff, vacations, all the material stuff, but then they flinch and say, well, getting healthy is just for the wealthy. But really, they don't flinch on buying the materialistic dopamine hitting, like addictive stuff that our culture sells us. I really would empower the average Westerner that's listening to this to say, like, what am I spending my money on? Like, what am I prioritizing? Because the United States, we spend more on healthcare than the next, like as a country, more on healthcare than the next 10 top spending countries combined. Yet we have the most disease and the shortest lifespan and the shortest health span of all industrialized nations. There's a report out of JAMA, which isn't even new. It's probably even worse now, the Journal of American Medical Association. So we spend so much money on disease care, basically, not on actually health care. But individuals, we are depending on these insurance companies for our health. And anybody with insurance will tell you it's great for crisis care, God forbid, car accidents or life-saving surgery, but for actual health, chronic health care and getting somebody healthy and improving your wellness, insurance is not designed for that. It's designed for emergency care, and certainly we need that. But so I would say I would just encourage people to have a paradigm shift and quit depending on corporations and the government for what's your responsibility is your health. So that would be my first advice. And that shows up in just listening to conversations like this, empowering yourself, having agency over your health. That would be first and foremost. And then start cleaning up the foods that you eat. We live in such an awesome time. Where I live, I can go to Costco and Aldi and Walmart and Target and buy things online like Thrive Market, like cheaper things that are organic, that are healthy, that are better for you at least, options. So to me, there's very little excuse for the average Westerner that's listening to this. It's more of just empowering and educating people.